Welcome to Birdseeds. Thank you guys once again for listening. Absolutely love this. So if you follow me on Instagram or anything like that, you may have seen a video that I put out last week. And I mentioned that I was going to dive a little bit deeper into it and make it a Birdseeds episode. So if you listen to that, this is that deeper dive into that. If you didn't, well, welcome to the topic here. So this comes in light of the Orioles losing. So obviously I'm here in Maryland and a big Baltimore Orioles fan. And, 101 win team, quite amazing. And unfortunately they got swept in the first round of the playoffs. And there's a whole lot of talk. This is not a baseball podcast. There's a whole lot of talk about the teams, all the 100-win teams lost in the first round and the break and how baseball is a momentum sport and how taking a break is actually detrimental. We've seen this last couple of years. I think there's something to it because all these top-seeded teams shouldn't be losing in the first round. Sure, one or two. Yeah, absolutely. There's going to be teams that are just outmatched or just injuries or whatever happens. But when it's pretty much consistent that this is what happens, I think there's something to that. And I think we can take a little bit of an analogy there in our lives. I know that I am momentum. So when I'm winning, I keep winning. I keep just doing things. I keep taking the next step and I just keep winning. But if I get setbacks, I start in a setback cycle where all of a sudden, it just seems like it all comes in waves. So I really think there's something that we can all take from that and just say, stay in motion, stay in momentum, just keep it going, keep your, foot down on the gas, keep driving. So that's not the point of this, although I think it's a valid takeaway as well. But what I had mentioned in that video, and frankly, I used the wrong name. I used Elias, who's the GM. I really meant Brandon Hyde. So one of the cool things, if you're not familiar with the Orioles, is that they have an incredibly quick rebuild. They were one of the worst teams in baseball. I think about 2 years ago, they won 50 games or something like that. I don't have the exact stats, but then they, 2 years later, they're a 101 win team. They missed the playoffs last year. Obviously, they made the playoffs this year. The end result's incredibly disappointing, especially based just on how good and young the team was. And one of the things that Elias and Hyde have done and what they pride themselves on is the use of analytics. So baseball is definitely one of the most analytical sports that's out there. I think it's Billy Beane, if I'm not mixing that name up, is the one that kind of was the innovator of analytics in baseball. And there's a lot of merit to it. And, we can take this out of baseball, take it into our world right now, where we see AI, which is basically analytics, right? AI is just artificial intelligence based on the data sets that are out there. So we see this a lot. And there's a lot of value in that data. It should inform your decisions. But where Brandon Hyde, in my opinion, made a huge error is he relied way too heavily on those analytics. He made his decisions on roster, who to play, when to play, who to sub, when to sub, how long to keep people in, so on and so forth, based simply on the analytics. And that data is valuable, but it shouldn't make your decision for you. It should be a data point in your decision-making process. And I think that they lost horribly because of that. If somebody gets 4 hits, 4 for 4, and you bench them the next game, that's not smart. Okay, yeah, this person may, analytically not be good about, against left-handers or something, but maybe they're good in the moment. Where's your analytics on that? But if they've never been in that moment, how do you have the data? So that number one, when you're using analytics, you have to understand how reliable or how good your data is. In the music world, we call it, I'll paraphrase it or I'll censor myself. Crap in is crap out, right? So if you're recording and you have a really bad quality of, even just a cable going in or just the bad instrument or bad tone or whatever it is, poorly mic'd, there's only so much you can do in post-production with that. So in this podcast, if I don't use a really good microphone and I don't use a really good software and a really good interface that does the analog to digital transformation for me, conversion, it's going to sound terrible no matter what I do to it in Logic here. That doesn't matter. Crap in is crap out. Well, if you have bad data or you have incomplete data, which is equally as bad data, you have to at least understand that to know that, hey, I don't have a data set for this. So again, maybe you don't have a data set for how somebody performs in the heat in a playoff setting if they've never been in the playoffs. So you have to understand that. The human element is what, in my opinion, decision-making should focus on. It's the human element. What is that? It's the gut feeling. That's the instincts. That's the emotions of it. I mean, to break it down, it's the emotions of it, right? It's the belief. It's the trust. When you just use analytics, you can take a player and just knock them down a peg because they don't understand. They're like, man, I hit 4 hits yesterday. I was 4 for 4. Let's go. I'm in this. I'm doing this. Let's go. And if you bench them the next game, even if you tell them the analytics say that, they still don't feel like you trust them. And when we go back to everything is about being in the flow, you're not going to be in the flow if you feel like you're questioning yourself. Like, am I not good enough? I thought I did really well yesterday. Apparently you don't think I did well. You're in your head. You're not in the momentum. And I think that's exactly why the Orioles lost in the playoffs. Again, data's great. When it's wrong or incomplete, it's terrible. Look at Zillow offers. Zillow offers, if you guys aren't familiar, Zillow basically tried to become an iBuyer. What's an iBuyer? An iBuyer is a company that buys houses. So basically, they're flipping houses. They became a home flipper. And they famously failed. I mean, they had to cut 25% of their workforce, which is about 2,000 employees, because of this mistake or this failure. Now, what was that failure? There's 2 things that happened there. One, they had bad data. They came out and said that they had an error rate of 1.9% when it was actually the actual error rate was 6.9%. That's a big difference in your margin of error. It's a big difference in your risk tolerance and your risk thresholds when you're talking about that much of a difference in margin of error. So why else did it fail? Because they only relied on analytics. They didn't rely on human intervention. They didn't rely on somebody saying, yeah, this makes sense. This is a good deal. They relied on a computer saying, this is a good deal. Well, yeah, the computer's got a lot of data. But does it understand the dynamics of the neighborhood? Does it understand, it can understand what things are selling for around there, but we have low inventory. We've had low inventory for a while. So when you don't have enough inventory, how do you know? If there's no direct comp, how do you know what it is, right? I mean, we've known that their estimates have been wildly off for a long time. They get more and more accurate. There's no doubt. They're actually kind of scarily accurate now, but they've been wrong for a long time. There's a story, and I don't remember the exact details, but Spencer Raskoff, the former CEO of Zillow, before Rich Barton took back over, listed his house for sale. And I don't remember the exact numbers, but it was something along the lines of, his estimate was I don't know, let's just say it was 1.8, 1.9 million, and he actually sold it for 1.2. That's wild, right? Those estimates, they're just data sets. There's no way you can have enough data. You know what it doesn't have? It doesn't have smell-o-vision. It doesn't know what that house smells like. Cigarette smoke is one of the biggest hindrances to selling your house. If it smells like cigarette smoke, it smells like pets. Those are 2 things that are very difficult to get out of a house, and it will directly impact what you get for your house. Well, guess what a computer doesn't know how to do? It doesn't know how to smell. It's not a human. It doesn't. Yeah, a computer can tell you how close proximity you are to the commercial space or to the rundown house down the road, but it can't tell you what it looks like out that window. Do you see that when you're standing in the front door? When you're opening the front door to greet the mailman or mail lady, mail person, and you look out, are you looking at a drug house, or are you looking at a really nice house? It can't do that. It can't apply that. The buyer has emotion. The buyer makes an emotional decision when they buy a house, and the computer cannot, at least currently, predict that emotion. So the point of all this, be human. Use data. Use technology. I wrote an article for the Baltimore Real Producers trade magazine here in Baltimore years ago. It was called Us versus Tech. And the point of that article was, if you simply just use technology the way that your competitors are using it, so, your tech that's getting into real estate, if you're just using their technology, and what I was referencing at that specific point in time was using automated chatbots, right? The automated chatbots that go out and they respond to people with leads coming in, and they're warming up leads for you. And I don't agree with that personally. I don't think that's good business, because if you are only using that, all you're doing is normalizing this practice to your clients. You're making the community, you're making the customer base, you're making everybody, the consumers, feel like this is normal, because we all know when we're being communicated with the chatbot. It will probably get good enough that we don't, but we all know. There's just something. There's something inside that you know when you're not talking to a human. And if you just keep doing that, all you're doing is normalizing that and just getting them prepared and primed and prepped for when the technology does that for you. So if you are doing something that a computer can replace you for doing, the computer will replace you for doing it. Somebody will make a computer that replaces you. So do what the computers can't do. Be the human. Be the real person. Be the emotional being. Be better than what they do. I'm going to leave on this one. This is a whole nother episode, but it's a saying I came up with this week. They can't be better at me than I can be at being me, and I can't be better at them than they are at being them. So I'm going to focus on being the best me that I can be. Let's go. Thanks for listening. Birdseeds, Joe Bird. Have a wonderful day.